Previously, Li Shangping's final sacrifice returned a lost fragment to the ancient mirror, allowing Li Tongya to inherit the heavy sea long whale gang qi and surge to the 5th level of qi refining. At the same time, Jia Nixi destroyed his own cultivation rather than become a sacrifice, plunging the Shanyue into chaos. Now the Li clan begins expanding its influence. A valuable Qingwu mine draws dangerous attention. Li Xuanfeng breaks through to qi refining, and a brutal battle erupts at the Wangyue Lake Market. Let's continue with Reborn as an Ancient Mirror, Episode 16. Despite cultivating for many years, Liu Rushuan had only reached the 3rd level of the embryonic breath realm. Her aptitude had never been particularly high, and the breathing art she practiced was merely 1st grade. After years without further progress, faint strands of white had begun to appear at her temples. Li Tongya answered gently. He and Liu Zhuan had lived together for nearly 20 years and understood each other well. Taking her hand, he noticed the worry on her face and smiled. What is it, husband? Liu Rushuan lowered her head. I chose several concubines for you. They are waiting outside. Li Tongya froze. With a strange expression, he waved the women away and burst out laughing. What are you thinking? Liu Rushuan's brows curved with worry as she said softly. I know my aptitude is poor. I fear I may never reach qi refining and will not be able to remain beside you for much longer. We only have Zhanling beneath our knees. Our line is far too thin. Li Tongya opened his mouth but said nothing. The clan had always distributed pills and spiritual rice according to aptitude. Even Li Xuanyuan and Li Xuanling did not receive enough for their needs, so Liu Rushuan had naturally been overlooked. With her talent, she might never break through to qi refining before the end of her life. The word came out with difficulty. Given his temperament, he could never squander clan resources to favor his own wife. Liu Rushuan merely shook her head. That is not what I meant. I am no good at fighting and my aptitude is poor. Even if I reached qi refining, it would only be a waste. How could I dare consume the clan's resources? I only want you to leave behind more descendants. Li Tongya shook his head, moved despite himself. Say no more. We were born into farming households. I have no talent for keeping 3 wives and 4 concubines. Xuanling is sensible, obedient, steady, and diligent in his cultivation. That is all thanks to you. I have never properly thanked you for it. Liu Rushuan tried to speak again, but Li Tongya covered her mouth and gently stroked her hair. If you want more children, then bear me another one yourself. Li Chuyang had been back in the town for several months when his father, Li Chengfu, passed away. The funeral was held with respectable ceremony. The main branch sent people to offer condolences, and Li Chuyang answered each guest in turn. Afterward, he sat alone in the mourning hall, staring blankly at his father's coffin. His elder brothers treated him with excessive respect, which only made him uncomfortable. Li Chengfu had died peacefully. He had held on until Li Chuyang returned to town, as though finally relieved, then quietly passed away on his bed while gripping his son's hand. Looking at the mourning hall draped in white, Li Chuyang vaguely recalled a day when he had been 5 or 7 years old. Hearing that the clan head was testing children for spiritual apertures, Li Chengfu had picked him up and carried him outside. They had walked along the stone-paved path for some time before he asked, Father, where are we going? To seek immortality, Li Chengfu had laughed as he answered. Later, when they returned to the clan and changed their surname back to Li, the surrounding villagers and members of the Yi family had rushed to curry favor with them. Li Chengfu had been sharp-eyed and capable. Not only had he kept Li Chuyang's elder brothers under control and never allowed them to cause trouble for him, but he had also taken on many clan duties, allowing their branch to prosper day by day. Once, while drinking with Li Chuyang, Li Chengfu had laughed quietly and said, When I was young and catching fat field rats, I could already tell there were 3 clever people in the village. One was Li Mutian, and another was Chen Ernu. One was ruthless and calm, while the other was quick-witted and shrewd. And the third? Li Chuyang had asked with a smile. Yi Chengfu. Li Chengfu had laughed heartily, his eyes clouded with drink as the wine bowl swayed in his hand. Li Chuyang suddenly awoke from the memory. Li Chengfu lay cold inside the coffin. A small child came running into the hall, a white mourning cloth tied around his forehead and tears in his eyes. Father! Li Chuyang drew his youngest son into his arms and murmured, None of you 8 possess spiritual apertures. Where then does the hope of my line lie? At most, I can protect your wealth and comfort for the rest of your lives. Without spiritual apertures, you may even pass away before your father does. He looked at the innocent child and had only spoken those 2 sentences when a clan soldier entered and bowed. Clan uncle, the clan head summons you. Li Chuyang quickly rose, straightened his clothes, and hurried toward Lijing Mountain. After walking some distance along the stone path, he saw the enormous corpse of a patterned serpent lying on the ground. What a huge snake, Li Chuyang exclaimed. Without waiting for Li Xuanyuan to speak, he bent down on his own initiative and cast the spirit sealing art upon the demon beast's corpse. Li Xuanyuan smiled gently. How is Clan Uncle's cultivation progressing? The 4th level, the Qingyuan Wheel. Li Chuyang laughed. Nearby, Li Xuanfeng silently polished his bow. He wore white from head to toe and appeared to be in an ordinary mood. A clan soldier rushed up from below, drenched in sweat. He bent down beside Li Xuanyuan and whispered, "Clan head, news has come from the Shanyue. Jia Nixi is dead. He was assassinated during the Shanyue grand sacrifice." Li Xuanyuan froze. Then delight flashed across his face and he hurriedly stood. "Jia Nixi is dead. He was assassinated at the grand sacrifice. We can finally sleep in peace. We must drink a full bowl to celebrate." The other two were stunned. Li Xuanfeng stopped polishing his bow and said coldly, "He got off too easily." Li Chuyang's expression was more complicated. "When I was in Shanyue territory, I met many of their common people. They revered him deeply. How could anyone have assassinated him?" Li Xuanyuan nodded and continued the thought. Moreover, his cultivation was at least at the peak of qi refining. Who could kill him unless a foundation establishment cultivator acted? There are too many suspicious points. The waters behind this are likely very deep. Where is second uncle? He may be the only one who understands what truly happened. Li Xuanyuan looked up. Li Xuanfeng replied, "He went to hunt demons." Li Tongya followed a mountain path for some time. Guided by memory, he found a massive banyan tree with pale white leaves beneath a cliff. The tree towered over the mountainside, its white leaves drifting down and covering the ground like snow. At the place he remembered, a huge dark red fox lay sleeping beside the tree. The moment Li Tongya stopped, its sensitive ears stood upright and it narrowed its eyes at him. Li Tongya observed it in silence. The demon beast's cultivation was around the 5th level of qi refining. He had encountered it once before while searching for a gang qi sacrifice. At that time, a distant glance at its aura had been enough to frighten him into retreating. Now that his cultivation had risen, it was the perfect opponent with which to test his sword. The great fox's eyes were strikingly intelligent. It stared at the sword in his hand, licked one paw, opened its enormous mouth and stammered, "I have never eaten humans." Li Tongya froze. Doubtful, he swept the fox with his spiritual sense and confirmed that it was indeed at the 5th level of qi refining, not foundation establishment. This was the first time he had seen a demon beast that seemed to have awakened its intelligence and refined the transverse bone in its throat. For a moment, he did not know how to respond. "Fellow Taoist, I only wish to exchange a few moves. We will stop once a victor is clear." The great fox stared at him, speechless. Li Tongya laughed, raised his hand and slashed. The fox sprang up and blocked with its claws. Metallic crashes rang out as man and fox exchanged dozens of blows. Once Li Tongya had gained a measure of its strength, he widened the distance and began attacking with sword qi. The fox immediately found itself constrained. After blocking several waves of sword qi, it opened its mouth and spat out a chain of foxfire. The blazing flames shot toward Li Tongya's face one after another. Startled, he retreated several steps, only for the foxfire to follow him like a shadow. It clung to his protective true essence and hissed as it burned. Li Tongya spent several streams of true essence extinguishing the foxfire. By then, the great fox had already lunged at him with claws and fangs bared, intending to drag him into close combat. Li Tongya had long since drawn back his sword and gathered power. White radiance ignited in his hand, and the Moon Gang sword arc surged out. The sharp, white crescent carved into the fox's thick fur and forced it back again and again. Only after spitting out several more balls of foxfire did it manage to disperse the sword qi. It had barely stopped the crescent arc when several more sword strikes arrived before it. The great fox yelped loudly. Even its speech became far smoother under pressure. "No more! No more! My superior is a demon general. You cannot kill me!" Li Tongya stopped his sword. He had also been hoping to use this opportunity to gather information, so he sheathed the blade and smiled. "Fellow Taoist, foxfire is quite formidable. Not as formidable as your sword." The fox lowered its head with a sigh. Its defeated expression was remarkably human. Dropping onto its haunches beneath the great banyan tree, it said, "You are from that immortal clan beneath the mountain? There is one who fights with a bow. Do you know him?" The moment it mentioned a bow, Li Tongya understood and cupped his hands. "Thank you for showing restraint, fellow Taoist. He is indeed a junior of my family." The fox smacked its lips and groomed its fur before replying reluctantly, "How many of them die has nothing to do with me. As long as you do not disturb that enormous pig, you may hunt the demon beasts around the outskirts as you please. May I ask about this demon general?" Li Tongya cupped his hands. The fox immediately stood upright and ground its teeth. "He is a foundation establishment boar demon. Every demon beast in this region falls under his rule. You could say he is tyrannical. It would be one thing if he merely came to eat for free, but he even demands that I deliver spiritual bamboo shoots to him every year." Li Tongya nodded and thought, "So there truly is a foundation establishment demon beast in these mountains. Fortunately, I did not recklessly venture into the depths." I have only wandered around the outer region. Seeing the great fox's indignant appearance, an idea stirred in Li Tongya's mind. He patted his storage pouch, took out a sack of spiritual rice, and smiled gently. Great fox, look at this. The fox's dark red fur twitched. It lowered its head to sniff the sack, its eyes gleaming. It smells rather good. This is a kind of spiritual grain grown from spiritual rice. It is rare in these mountains. I have heard that you immortal cultivators love eating it. If you want me to do anything for you, I will not lift a paw for less than 80 or 100 jin. Li Tongya smiled. 80 or 100 jin was worth no more than a single spirit stone. If it could buy the aid of a chi refining demon, it would be an enormous bargain. He quietly kept the possibility in mind. Answer a few questions, and this sack of spiritual rice is yours. The great fox immediately raised its head and praised his generosity. Li Tongya tossed it the sack and asked, "Do you know the details of that demon general's forces?" "Of course." The great fox gave a delighted cry and began explaining eagerly. "That boar demon is at Foundation Establishment. He has 8 lesser demons under him, all at chi refining. They gather spiritual objects on his behalf and live in a demon cave 200 li to the south. Any demon beast in this region that reaches chi refining is captured. He takes a trace of its spiritual nature from between its brows, then sends it back to guard its former territory." It sniffed the sack again and cast Li Tongya a wary glance. As it continued speaking, its words grew smoother. "Why would you offer something this good? Did you put poison in it?" Li Tongya was listening with great interest and quickly asked, "What use does that stolen spiritual nature serve? Did the boar demon take yours as well?" "Ha!" The great fox raised its head indignantly. "My fox grandmother is one of the cave lords of the 6 caves of Li Mountain. How would that boar dare take my spiritual nature? He would truly be courting death. As for spiritual nature," the fox sighed and lowered its head. "We demon beasts absorb the essence of the sun and moon. After condensing the 6 wheels, a spark of spirituality forms between our brows. If it is damaged, our cultivation falls sharply and our vital essence scatters. The boar merely keeps that weakness in his hands. So that is how it works." Li Tongya nodded, gaining a rough understanding of the demon beast's method. Seeing the great fox pacing around the sack of rice, he asked softly, "Does fellow Taoist know of any chi-refining demon beasts in this region that have not yet been captured?" 6 remain. As for their locations, you will have to trade more spiritual rice for them." The fox narrowed its eyes cunningly. Li Tongya smiled. "How long have you lived, fox?" "More than 300 years. The great fox leaned against the banyan's roots. "For my first 60 years, I lived in ignorance. Only after I was past 60 did I cultivate the 5th wheel and retain a few memories. I was 277 before I finally condensed a breath of spiritual chi in my belly and broke through to chi refining. Only then did I possess intelligence comparable to a human. After cultivating alone for another 100 years, I have barely reached the 5th level of chi refining." "Nearly 400 years? Li Tongya could not help feeling envious. "You demon beasts truly live easily. Even after we humans break through to chi refining, we only gain a lifespan of 200 years. What is there to envy?" The fox squeaked bitterly. "At chi refining, my lifespan is 500 years at most, and I have nearly exhausted it already. I have possessed true intelligence for little more than the final 100 years. I spent the previous centuries in a haze. That is far worse than you immortals." Li Tongya nodded. Then an idea suddenly struck him. 300 years ago, a great battle took place at the foot of these mountains. "Do you remember anything about it?" "A great battle?" The fox stared blankly before answering in a low voice. "I think there was one. That night, I curled up in my den while the earth shook without end. The voices of those immortals were like thunder. They kept demanding that someone surrender something." Seeing Li Tongya listening so intently, the fox began stammering again. "They said something about Ji, the Jiu's secret edict. I was only an embryonic breath lesser demon then. How could I remember so much?" Li Tongya questioned it carefully for some time, but learned nothing more. He could only give up and shake his head in disappointment. The fox lowered its head, looking somewhat guilty. "I have heard another rumor about the northern foothills." Li Tongya looked up with interest. The great fox continued. "I once heard it from an elder fox brother who was passing through. He spoke of our old ancestress, the cave lord. More than 300 years ago, she was still scavenging for food around these northern foothills. She was sleeping like the dead inside a hollow tree when a silver-haired immortal suddenly dragged her out. That silver-haired immortal's cultivation was unfathomable. The first thing he asked was, 'Little fox, have you ever eaten a human?' At that time, a great battle had only recently ended at the northern foothills, and no humans lived here yet. Our ancestress answered, 'Never.'" The great fox became absorbed in its own story, and Li Tongya listened with equal fascination. The creature imitated both voices perfectly. The immortal's voice airy and transcendent, the fox's hesitant and nervous. Li Tongya nearly applauded its performance. The silver-haired immortal said, "A group of villagers will settle beneath this mountain. Watch over them for me. Protect them for 200 years, and I will grant you a stroke of fortune." Our ancestress nodded again and again. The white-haired immortal touched her brow, left behind a blessing, and drifted away. Li Tongya hurriedly asked, "What blessing? How would I know?" The great fox rolled its eyes and continued, "That is why the Fox clan of Li Mountain has never eaten humans. Although 200 years have already passed, our ancestress still rules the demon clans of Li Mountain. Several years ago, a great bird devoured people at the foot of the mountain and angered her. She drove it out and forbade it from coming within 1,000 li of Li Mountain. Otherwise, it would already have eaten its fill down below." Li Tongya nodded and thought, "My Li clan has farmed these northern foothills for 300 years. Yet I have never heard of any family whose ancestor was an immortal. Whether this story is true or false, I can only treat it as something worth hearing." Looking at the fox, he asked, "Does fellow Taoist have a name?" The great fox curled its lip. "I have lived beneath this banyan all year round, so they call me the White Banyan Fox. As for surnames, demon beasts do not concern themselves with such things." Li Tongya nodded and cupped his hands. "I am Li Tongya. I benefited greatly from fellow Taoist's guidance today. I will return to visit in a few months." Watching Li Tongya ride the wind away, the great fox released a long breath and dropped heavily onto the ground. It picked up a single grain of spiritual rice, placed it in its mouth, and carefully licked it. So fragrant! A year passed in the blink of an eye after Li Xuanyuan succeeded to the position of clan head. Although the main branch of the Li clan still wore white mourning clothes, they gradually grew accustomed to life under Li Xuanyuan's leadership. After returning to the mountain, Li Tongya spent most of his time in seclusion. Li Xuanfeng buried himself in demon hunting and cultivation. Li Xuanyuan had become the Li clan's ruler in both name and reality. Though only in his early 20s, he handled matters cautiously and arranged the clan's affairs with care. Li Xuanyuan sat in the seat of honor in the main courtyard, with Li Xiewen standing respectfully to one side. He smiled at Chen Donghe below. "Have you made your decision?" Chen Donghe frowned and cupped his hands. "Marrying into the bride's family is a matter of great consequence. I cannot decide it carelessly. I must first return home and ask my father." "That is only proper," Li Xuanyuan said warmly. "Donghe, you must not feel burdened. These are simply the clan's rules. Only members of the Li clan's main branch may cultivate the river and stream one key art. Even I had to beg second uncle bitterly before he granted you this opportunity." Chen Donghe hurriedly nodded, thanked him repeatedly, then withdrew with cupped hands. Li Xiewen ordered a servant to remove the tea from Chen Donghe's place and said respectfully, "Clan head Xuanfeng is already 14. His marriage should also be placed on the agenda." "Indeed." Li Xuan nodded, opened the wooden slip in his hands, calculated for several breaths, and asked, "How many talismans did second uncle send down the mountain this month?" 5, clan head. "Our stock of talisman ink and paper is nearly exhausted. Xuanfeng will need to make another trip to the market this month." Li Xuan gave the order. As the clan's manpower gradually increased, and nearly all the spiritual fields in their territory were brought under cultivation, the Li clan could now retain a modest surplus each year after paying tribute to Qingqi sect and supporting its own cultivators. After deducting the spiritual rice used for tribute, we still produce 300 jin each year. Cultivators of the main branch receive 10 jin annually, those of the lesser branches receive 5, and cultivators of other surnames receive 1. That totals 86 jin, leaving enough to sell for another 2 spirit stones. The Li clan had never possessed so many cultivators of its own blood. In recent years, however, people with spiritual apertures from the 4 towns had married into the clan or taken Li wives, gradually becoming members of its lesser branches. They were therefore entitled to an allotment of spiritual rice. Second uncle can draw 60 talismans each year. Their sale brings in 20 spirit stones, though after expenses the profit is only 2. Add the demon beasts Xuanfeng and Donghe hunt in the mountains, and our annual income reaches about 7 spirit stones. The price of a single embryonic breath artifact. The clan treasury still held more than 70 spirit stones. The Li clan was saving them to construct a proper grand formation around Lijing Mountain, so every additional stone delighted Li Xuanyuan. In another few years we will have to travel into the commandery to deliver tribute, and report that our clan now possesses qi refining cultivators. By then, it would be best to have 100 spirit stones saved. Only then can we confidently invite a formation master to build the array. Several days earlier, Li Xuanfeng had entered seclusion once more. At the peak of embryonic breath, he stood only a step away from qi refining. Li Tongya had given him the Ji clan's Golden Radiance True Edge art, along with a portion of Metal Stone Sharp Qi, so that he could make the breakthrough. The Golden Radiance True Edge art was also a third-grade orthodox method, no weaker than the river and stream 1 key art. Its sharp and rapid nature suited Li Xuanfeng's archery even better, so Li Tongya had entrusted it to him. He hoped that at the next tribute delivery, Li Xuanfeng could represent the Li clan at Cloudwatch Peak. Although Li Tongya had reached qi refining, the heavy sea-long whale gang qi had pushed him through several levels in succession until he reached the 5th level. Such progress was simply too shocking. The last time he had delivered tribute, he had only been at the peak of embryonic breath. Appearing again at the 5th level of qi refining would inevitably attract the attention of those with ulterior motives. Li Tongya had always been cautious and naturally refused to take that risk. A 15-year-old Li Xuanfeng reaching qi refining would already be astonishing, but Li Tongya was more than 30 years old and had risen from peak embryonic breath to the 5th level of qi refining in only 5 years. Even a fool would know something was wrong. Is second uncle in seclusion? Li Xuanyuan asked. Li Xiaowen replied, Clan uncle has been secluded for several days. He said he needed to stabilize his cultivation. After arranging the clan's affairs, Li Xuanyuan was about to rise when a clan soldier hurried in and bowed. Clan head, a messenger has arrived from Lichuan Pass. A group of Shanyue has come from the west, with a line of carts and slaves. They claim to represent the eastern Shanyue and wish to submit. Submit? Li Xuanyuan stared, nearly laughing aloud. We and the Shanyue belong to two separate great powers. No matter how many villages ask to join us, we would not dare accept them. What do they mean by this? It seems Mu Xiaoman is truly frightened and can no longer sit still. After Jia Nixi's death, the Shanyue fractured within a single year. Numerous small factions emerged, while refugees and armed bands filled the land. According to Li Xuanyuan's informants in the west, Mushu Xiaoman had gathered 6 or 7 villages near Li territory. His domain was known as the 100,000 Shanyue, or simply the Eastern Shanyue. Among those 100,000 people, Mu Xiaoman was the only qi refining cultivator. Li Tongya's present strength far surpassed his. Both Li Tongya and Li Xuanyuan had long coveted the region and had repeatedly considered crossing the border to plunder Mu Xiaoman. Wushan had never truly cared about the ordinary Shanyue. So long as the Li clan did not openly annex their territory, the shamans would most likely ignore whatever happened. Yet Shanyue territory was now a complete chaos. Li Tongya's caution had kept him from marching west to kill Mu Xiaoman, for he had no desire to gamble his life on the temperament of Wushan's cultivators. Unexpectedly, Mu Xiaoman had now sent an envoy to their door. The Shanyue say they are willing to form marriage alliances, open trade, and offer tribute. They ask only one thing. What? Li Xuanyuan glanced down, already knowing the answer. They ask that the Li clan's qi refining cultivators never cross the border. Li Xuanyuan laughed heartily and released a breath he had been holding. What perfect retribution. We lived in fear beneath Jia Nixi's shadow for so many years. Now it is the Shenyu's turn to fear us. So this is what the tribes of the eastern people are like. Mu Yalu led a procession carrying great bundles of hides and carts of grain. She took several cautious steps forward. Clan soldiers gathered from every direction, gripping long spears and sabers, as they watched the newcomers warily. We have come to submit. One of the Shanyue attendants stepped forward and shouted. The Li soldiers did not even glance at him. Their eyes remained filled with vigilance. Mu Yalu sighed softly. Rather than sorrow at leaving her homeland, her heart was filled with envy. These Easterners are fully clothed and calm. Even Shanyue nobles cannot match the garments they wear. The sabers and swords in their hands are exquisitely forged and completely undamaged. It is almost impossible to believe. The locust plague has swept through 15 settlements. People are starving to death even in Dajue Court. Our land has truly become a place where neither heaven nor earth offers a path to survival. The clan soldiers soon parted. A sharp-looking young man in leather armor stepped forward. Mu Yalu hurriedly copied the Eastern custom of cupping her hands and spoke in a soft voice. Are you the head of the Li clan? Before leaving home, Mu Yalu had prepared diligently. She had washed the tribal markings from her body and studied the Easterners' etiquette. Only after being scolded several times had she learned to lower her voice and restrain her steps. I would not dare claim such a title. I am Li Xiaowen, steward of the Li clan. Please come forward. Li Xiaowen led Mu Yalu onward. Clan soldiers naturally stepped up to confiscate her weapons and confirm that she possessed no cultivation. Only then was she brought before Li Xuanyuan. Li Xuanyuan stroked his chin and looked her over. She possessed a certain wild beauty. Why has the Eastern Shanyue sent you here? Mu Yalu hurriedly lowered her head. I am Mu Yalu, younger sister of Mu Xiaoman. I greet the head of the Li clan. We are willing to offer tribute, open trade with your esteemed clan and form marriage alliances. We ask only that the Li clan refrain from crossing the border to kill our people. Her words caused an uproar among the surrounding soldiers. Only a year earlier, the Shanyue had invaded their lands and killed their people. Now they had brought wealth to beg for favor. The contrast was naturally astonishing. Everything Jia Nixi plundered from your lands has finally been returned. It is all in the carts behind us. We sincerely seek peace. If the clan head agrees, we are willing to bind ourselves to the Li clan through marriage for generations. I, Mu Yalu, will be the beginning of that alliance. Mu Yalu referred to the Li people as Easterners, rather than using the mocking Shanyue term living people, proof that she had prepared carefully. She raised a wooden box containing a pure white fruit. Our king offers this spiritual fruit as an apology for the Eastern campaign. He hopes the two families may put aside their past grievances. This fruit is greatly beneficial even to qi refining cultivators. I asked that the clan head accept it. Li Xuanyuan looked at her. A subordinate stepped forward to receive the fruit. Envoy, please wait. We must discuss the matter among ourselves. Mu Yalu nodded and withdrew. Li Xuanyuan leaned toward Li Shiwen and whispered, "First, send people to untie the captives." With that, he turned and led his people toward Lijing Mountain. Below, the clan soldiers immediately began untying the carts and the people bound behind them. A Shanyue attendant shouted angrily, "Your king has not even agreed yet." Mu Yalu frowned and tried to stop them, but the man had already been knocked to the ground. Blood covered his face, and 3 teeth lay in the dirt. "You!" Mu Yalu hurriedly held the others back and shook her head sorrowfully. She understood that whether the negotiation succeeded or failed, none of the wealth or slaves they had brought would ever be taken home. Li Tongya had been in seclusion for only a few days when someone knocked on the stone door of his cave dwelling. He frowned slightly. "Come in." Li Xuanchuan pushed open the door and bowed. "Second uncle, the Shanyue have sent an envoy to seek peace." He then recited their conditions one by one. Li Tongya listened carefully before speaking in a deep voice. "With my present strength, Mu Xiaoman would fall to a single sword strike. He is lustful, reckless, and capable only of defending what he already possesses. He could never compare with Jia Nixi. Allowing him to watch our western border for us may not be a bad thing. If we truly eliminate him, those 100,000 Shanyue will immediately collapse. We might keep them in chaos for several more years, but who knows what sort of vicious fiend might rise from the ruins. It is better to leave this man alive." Li Xuanyuan nodded in agreement. The Shanyue lack refined crafts. Their workmanship and metal forging are both extremely crude. Once they open their markets to us, we will effectively gain 100,000 tenant farmers. Second uncle's talismans can also be sold to them at high prices, instead of competing with everyone else at the market. Once our clan acquires inheritances in alchemy and artifact forging, we can use the Eastern Shanyue as a gateway and gradually turn several 100,000 Shanyue into a domain dependent upon us, much as King Qi sect has done with the families beneath it. Li Tongya stroked his chin. "Correct. Take Mu Yalu as a concubine. Find another suitable woman from our side to marry into theirs. Make sure she is properly instructed, and choose carefully when selecting the people who will be sent into Shanyue territory." "Yes." Li Xuanyuan lowered his head in acknowledgement and was about to withdraw when Li Tongya turned toward him. "How many children does Mu Xiaoman have?" Li Xuanyuan thought for several breaths. "I am not certain. Your nephew will send people to investigate immediately and report back to second uncle." Li Tongya nodded and waved him away. Then he lowered his head, considered the matter for a few breaths, dipped his brush in ink, and continued drawing talismans. Li Xuanyuan descended the mountain and entered a small courtyard at its foot. He waved and Li Xiaoman hurried forward. "Tell Mu Yalu that we agree. Find her a place in the household and teach her our rules. Then send someone to learn how many sons and daughters Mu Xiaoman has." "Yes." After dismissing Li Xiaoman, Li Xuanyuan lowered his head to study the talismanic method recorded on the spirit talisman in his hand. Li Xiaoman left the courtyard, dispatched several men, and personally entered the town. Mu Yalu had been waiting there for some time. Her tribesmen sat idly on the ground behind her, their expressions filled with resentment. Even their leather armor and weapons had been stripped away. At last, the sharp-looking young man approached and cupped his hands. "Lady, our lord has agreed. Please send your attendants away and follow me into the household. As for the woman, we will send to the Shanyue for the marriage exchange. She must first meet with her relatives." Joy appeared on Mu Yalu's face, and much of the tension among the attendants behind her faded. She hurriedly offered her thanks, then turned to the tribesmen. "You may go. Return and report to the chieftain that Yalu has fulfilled his instructions." The dozen Shanyue nodded and left the town together. Mu Xiaoman had feared angering the Li clan, and had therefore assigned no servants to accompany Mu Yalu. In an instant, she was left alone in the silent courtyard. "Seventh madam, please follow me." Li Xiaowan had already changed the way he addressed her and bowed respectfully. Hearing the words "seventh madam," Mu Yalu trembled. She understood that her life from this point onward might not be easy. She followed Li Xiaowan until a large residence appeared before them. It had blue bricks, black tiles, sweeping eaves, and spotless stone steps. The sight was imposing. Several children of 3 to 5 years old were playing inside the courtyard. These children all belong to the Yuan generation, Li Xiawen explained quietly. If you bear children in the future, their generational name will also be Yuan. Mu Yalu nodded blankly. Remembering what she had studied before leaving home, she hurriedly asked, "Which of them are the legitimate sons?" Li Xiawen glanced at her and answered sternly, "The legitimate sons all reside on the mountain. Any other child found to possess spiritual apertures at the age of 7 will also be taken up the mountain. Madam should harbor no improper thoughts. The methods of cultivators are beyond anything you can imagine." Mu Yalu froze. She knew he had misunderstood her, but when she opened her mouth, she found no way to explain. "My clan has preserved a pure and noble bloodline for generations. So long as Li Xuanyuan is willing to be close to me, our child will surely possess spiritual apertures. Bearing a child with spiritual apertures would already be a blessing. I have married into the East. What other schemes could I possibly have?" Li Xiwen remained entirely unaware of her thoughts. He led her to an empty room and said, "The household servants have already been assigned. Madam may settle in as she pleases." He took his leave, leaving Mu Yalu alone beneath the narrow patch of sky enclosed by the courtyard walls. Her emotions were complicated. She opened the door to the spotless room and sat down on the bed. "From now on, I must live within the Li clan. I wonder what kind of life awaits me." After leaving the residence, Li Xiawen received a report from a subordinate. He listened for a moment, then hurried to the courtyard at the foot of the mountain. Li Xuanyuan was still holding a book when he entered. "Clan head, Mu Yalu has been properly settled. We have also received information about Mu Xiaomen." Li Xuanyuan raised his brows. "So quickly?" "Clan head, Mu Xiaomen lives in extraordinary extravagance and keeps several thousand attendants. Some of the Shanyue who fled here several years ago once served in his household. We only needed to ask around." Li Xuanyuan set down the wooden slip and smiled. "I thought Lu Cici's household of more than 100 wives and concubines was already astonishing. Mu Xiaoman actually maintains several thousand attendants. He truly has no concern for the burden placed upon his people. No wonder Shanyue refugees continue to flee every year even though the rains have returned." "Exactly," Li Xiawen hastened to agree. "I also learned that he has 3 sons and 4 daughters. 1 son and 1 daughter possess spiritual apertures." Li Xuanyuan nodded and stroked his chin. "I understand. Several days ago, the Lu and Ang clans came to discuss marriage alliances. Now we are also connecting ourselves to the Shanyue. Arrange the escorts carefully on both sides. Nothing must go wrong along the road. Yes, men from 2 towns have already been assigned." Li Xuanyuan closed his eyes and considered for some time before issuing another order. "I have recently begun to touch the threshold of the 5th embryonic breath level. I should be able to attempt the breakthrough. In several days, I will enter seclusion. Send all household matters to Xuanling and have him oversee them." Li Xiawen bowed respectfully. Li Xuanyuan lowered his head and resumed reading. Of the Li clan's 4 towns, Lichuan Pass lay in the west against the Shanyue border. Jingyang and Lijing occupied the center, surrounding Lijing Mountain and Nixi Mountain. Lidao Pass marked the easternmost edge of Li territory and bordered the Lu clan's Huaqianshan. As the Li population grew, many villagers had reclaimed the surrounding wilderness, creating a thriving scene. Huaqianshan had suffered repeated massacres. Liujin Gate had once slaughtered every mortal in the region. Although the Ji and Lu clans had later moved settlers into the area, the land remained broad and sparsely populated. Many Li hunters therefore crossed the border to cut wood and hunt within Lu territory. The flourishing villages now received 2 uninvited guests. One was a bald man in a long robe. The other had silver hair and held a jade ruyi. They were the 2 men who had joined Li Tongya in destroying the Ji clan. The pair moved constantly through the forest, occasionally rising into the air to survey the mountains while speaking in low voices. They maintained concealment arts for nearly half an hour, apparently searching for something. "Brother-in, is the mine truly here?" Lu Cici asked. The bald man looked beneath his feet, formed a hand seal, and descended. He scooped up a handful of soil, examined it, and smiled. "There can be no mistake. We have searched for many days. This Azure Crow vein is narrow and stretches for several li in a winding line. It lies directly beneath us." Delight immediately appeared on Lu Cici's face. He circled the surroundings, flying back and forth above the trembling villagers. Then he frowned. "More than half of it truly lies within Li territory. This makes things difficult. We will probably be unable to conceal it." The bald man also looked troubled. "Indeed, Aran clan discovered it with the vein-seeking art, and Brother Lu promised us 3 shares. But mining creates too much commotion to hide. We will have no choice but to give the Li clan a portion." "Ha," Lu Cici sighed. "It may only be a small mine, but Azure Crow ore can still bring in more than 10 spirit stones each year. I truly resent having to divide it with them. What else can you do? Destroy the Li clan and seize all 4 towns?" The bald man shook his head with a bitter smile. "Li Tongya is cautious and his swordsmanship is exceptional. killing him would not be easy. Moreover, I have heard that the Li clan has a deep relationship with the Shao clan of Lijing Commandery, and they have a Qingwei disciple within the sect. Their backing is formidable. Lu Sisi lowered his head and smiled, abandoning his unrealistic fantasy. In a few days, I will visit the Li clan and discuss the mining and distribution. First, let us survey the vein thoroughly. The bald man of the An clan nodded and formed another hand seal, carefully tracing the direction of the mineral vein. Li Tongya had been in seclusion for more than a year when the stone door trembled softly. He exhaled a ribbon of white spiritual qi and said in a deep voice, "Come in." The stone door creaked open, revealing a boy a little over 10 years old whose features resembled Li Tongya's by 7 parts. It was Li Xuanling. "Father, the people from the Lu clan have come again." Li Tongya shook his head helplessly. "Very well. Hiding forever is not a solution. Come with me and meet them." Over the past year, the Lu clan had visited 3 times, always asking to see Li Tongya. Because his cultivation had risen too dramatically, he had refused to show himself. Lu Sisi, however, was persistent and returned every few months. Li Tongya feared that if he remained unseen much longer, the Lu clan might assume he had died and begin entertaining dangerous ideas. A qi refining cultivator could not live in complete isolation like a foundation establishment expert. Every 10 days or half a month, one still had to drink water and move about. Secluding oneself without food or drink for several years was impossible. 1 or 2 refusals might pass unnoticed, but repeated absences would inevitably arouse suspicion. The last time I met the Lu clan was more than 3 years ago. I was at the 3rd level of qi refining then, and now I am at the 5th. Qi refining is ordinarily a matter of steady accumulation, and spending 3 to 5 years on each level is already considered fast. With a sufficiently convincing explanation, I should be able to muddle through. "Linger, did Lu Sisi say what he wanted?" Li Tongya asked as they walked. "Lu Sisi is extremely arrogant. He does not place embryonic breath cultivators like us in his eyes at all. Why would he bother explaining anything?" Li Tongya lowered his head and smiled. "He is only a qi refining cultivator, yet he behaves this way. If he reached foundation establishment, would his arrogance not know any bounds?" Senior Xiao Chuding was already at the peak of foundation establishment, yet he could lower himself to befriend an embryonic breath cultivator. That alone reveals who truly stands above whom. At the mention of Xiao Chuding, curiosity stirred in Li Tongya's heart. According to Zhang Yun of the Golden Feather sect, Xiao Chuting had already reached the Purple Mansion realm. Yet no one knew how many years he had concealed it, what opportunity he was waiting for, or how much turmoil his eventual move would unleash. Xiao Chuting has lived for more than 200 years. In the first half of his life, he dragged the Xiao clan back from the edge of destruction and made them rulers of all Lijing Commandery. Then he silently cultivated to the Purple Mansion realm. He is certainly no ordinary man, and whatever he is planning must be something capable of shaking heaven and earth. The Li clan is closely tied to the Xiao clan. I wonder what this will mean for us in the future. Lost in thought, Li Tongya reached the main courtyard without realizing it. Looking up, he saw Lu Sisi drinking tea in the hall. Beside him sat a heroic-looking young man dressed in luxe foxfire, Senior Lu. Li Tongya smiled and cupped his hands. Lu Sisi rose to greet him, then abruptly stopped. The 5th level of qi refining? Lu Sisi himself was only at the 6th level. After merely 3 years apart, Li Tongya had nearly caught up with him. Li Tongya laughed. "When I last met Senior, I was already only 1 step away from the 4th level. Later, I found a spiritual fruit in the mountains. After more than 3 years in seclusion, I finally made my breakthroughs and have only just emerged." Naturally, he had invented the entire explanation. At their previous meeting, he had only recently reached the 3rd level. Lu Sisi appeared enlightened. Framed that way, the increase no longer seemed quite as outrageous. On the surface, Li Tongya had risen 2 levels in a little over 3 years, but if he had already stood at the threshold of the 4th, then the difference was smaller. "What astonishing fortune!" Li Tongya smiled. Lu Sisi drew the young man beside him forward. "This is a newly advanced qi refining cultivator of my Lu clan. His name is Lu Yanlu." Li Tongya quickly nodded and cupped his hands. "A pleasure to meet you." The young man appeared barely over 20, yet his manner was exceedingly proud. He waved one hand. Li Tongya stared for a moment. Lu Sisi smiled bitterly. Lu Yanlu lifted his chin and declared, "I have heard Brother Tongya's swordsmanship is excellent. Let us exchange pointers another day." As he spoke, he raised his wrist. A faint layer of blue true essence spread over the sword at his waist. Only then did Li Tongya understand, torn between laughter and exasperation. This fellow is showing off that he cultivates an orthodox method, and refined a form of heaven and earth spiritual qi, superior to lesser azure spiritual qi. A cultivator, practicing a proper orthodox art and refining true spiritual qi could indeed fight 3 who had swallowed miscellaneous qi. He had some right to be proud. Li Tongya smiled and cupped his hands. Brother Lu's true essence is truly enviable. Lu Yuanlu nodded with a smug smile. Lu Sisi stood beside him, visibly embarrassed and uncertain what to say. Looking at the young man, Li Tongya suddenly remembered another foolish Lu cultivator he had once met at Cloudwatch Peak. That man seemed to have died at the hands of the Ji clan. I once met a fellow cultivator at Cloudwatch Peak who refined Lesser Azure spiritual qi. May I ask whether Lu Yuanping was my elder brother? Oh, then Brother Yuanlu surpasses Brother Yuanping by quite a margin. Lu Yanlu's brows drew together, and he was about to respond when Lu Sisi could bear no more. Yuanlu! Lu Yanlu looked at him in confusion. Lu Sisi gritted his teeth. You should not hear what follows. Wait for me on the road. Lu Yanlu's eyes widened. His lips moved twice, but fortunately he restrained himself before an outsider. He left in anger, stepping into the air without even offering a farewell. Ha! Li Tongya gave an unreadable laugh. Lu Sisi released a long sigh. The juniors of my clan have grown accustomed to acting tyrannically at home. I ask that you forgive him, young friend. Deeply ashamed, Lu Sisi looked even more awkward. Glancing at Li Xuanling, he sighed again. Your clan governs its household with admirable discipline. We truly have much to learn. What brings Senior here this time? Li Tongya had no desire to waste more time and asked directly. Lu Sisi finally gathered himself. His white beard fluttered as he spoke gravely. Several years ago, a purple mansion cultivator attacked Lijing Mountain. The disturbance was enormous. I heard Qingqi sect was forced to activate even the heavenly origin Wendao spirit formation. Li Tongya froze. Qingqi Mountain? Someone attacked Qingqi sect? Were they mad? What power would dare act so brazenly? Who knows? Seeing Li Tongya's reaction, Lu Sisi looked delighted. He had recovered some of his dignity and smiled mysteriously. In any case, it was a great battle. Qingqi sect suffered its first public humiliation in more than a century. Do you know how the immortal sect handled the matter? How? Li Tongya asked with genuine curiosity. They came forward, offered an explanation, and let the matter end. The mighty Qingqi immortal sect quietly swallowed the humiliation and left it there. Do you know why? Li Tongya already had a suspicion, but his face showed disbelief. Why? I have heard that one of Qingqi sect's purple mansion cultivators has passed away. Lu Sisi lowered his voice, his expression solemn as he tightened his grip on the Jade Ruyi. They say there will certainly be upheaval within the next few years. We must prepare ourselves. Li Tongya nodded repeatedly. He understood that the old man wished to sell him a favor. Thank you for informing me, Senior. Lu Sisi sent it in satisfaction and waved a hand. There is another important matter, one involving the Li, Lu, and An clans. The An clan possesses the vein-seeking art. While surveying our territory in recent days, they discovered an azure crow ore vein along the border between our two domains. Joy immediately appeared on Li Tongya's face. What is its yield? In which direction does the vein run? Azure crow ore was a common material used to forge artifacts. If mined properly, even a small deposit could produce more than 10 spirit stones a year. Naturally, the news delighted him. Lu Sisi smacked his lips with some regret. It is a small vein running several li from east to west. If it were not so long and narrow that it extends into your territory, we would have enclosed and mined it ourselves. Li Tongya laughed. This is an important matter. I must inspect it personally. Senior Lu, please lead the way. Of course. I will first take you to examine it. Afterward, we must discuss mining arrangements and the division of profits. Lu Sisi and Li Tongya rode the wind down to the eastern side of Lidao Pass. Within Lu territory, a group of dust-covered villagers had already gathered. They had cleared a broad stretch of forest and erected dozens of scattered wooden huts, preparing the site for a mine. Azure crow ore grows within ordinary iron deposits. Only scattered pieces appear among the common ore. As the tunnels deepen, we must repeatedly use the vein-seeking art to determine its exact direction. The An clan's involvement is therefore indispensable. When Li Xuanfeng rode the wind down to the mine, the 3 embryonic breath cultivators were waiting on the ground. The surrounding miners dropped to their knees in a broad wave. We welcome Senior! The 3 cultivators called out together. Li Xuanfeng merely waved a hand, nodded to Li Chuyang and said, Clan Uncle. Only then did he look toward the cultivators of the Lu and An clans. There is no need for such ceremony. His spiritual sense swept over them. Both men were only at the 3rd or 4th level of embryonic breath and appeared to be in their 40s or 50s. Li Xuanfeng dismissed them with a wave, then asked quietly, Clan Uncle, what has happened at the mine these past few months? Why did you summon me so urgently? Li Chuyang cupped his hands. The boy who had once eaten the serpent flood fruit in the mountains was now past 30 and already held grandchildren in his arms. He had grown into a dignified man carrying a long saber with the bearing of a clan elder. We only recently began digging. In the 3rd month, we extracted 7 pieces. The output should rise gradually from here. However, miners have been losing their tongues with increasing frequency. Several months ago, it happened only occasionally. Last month, there were 1 or 2 cases. This month, There have already been more than 10. We had no choice but to send word home. Losing their tongues. A longbow hung across Li Xuanfeng's back. He frowned in confusion. Take me to see them. Li Chuyang nodded repeatedly and led him through camps of various sizes until they reached a large courtyard. Many Shanyue worked at the mine. So much of the surrounding architecture followed Shanyue styles. This courtyard had most likely been built by the Lu and An clans. More than a dozen men squatted against the wall inside. Most were Shanyue miners whom the Li clan had relocated there, and all wore anxious expressions. When Li Chuyang and Li Xuanfeng arrived, the courtyard overseer became extremely nervous. He ordered the squatting miners to kneel tightly together on the ground. They stared uneasily at the yellow dust beneath them. Li Xuanfeng placed one hand on the shoulder of the leading miner. True essence circulated through the man several times, but he detected nothing abnormal. His expression turned strange when he noticed spiritual qi flowing faintly within the middle-aged man's qi sea. You possess spiritual apertures. What a pity! The words struck like thunder. The man cried out twice, his expression caught between excitement and grief. Looking at him with complicated feelings, Li Xuanfeng turned and ordered, "Send this man back. Find a daughter from one of the lesser branches and marry her to him." Li Chuyang nodded. Several clan soldiers immediately stepped forward and led away the man, who was laughing and crying at once. Li Xuanfeng examined several more of the miners but found nothing. Did any of these people display anything unusual before losing their tongues? No, Li Chuyang shook his head. However, 4 among these several dozen men had personally mined azure crow ore. Li Xuanfeng nodded thoughtfully and studied the men before him. He accepted a blue-black piece of azure crow ore from Li Chuyang and circulated true essence through it. A faint, sharp metal and stone aura entered his senses. The azure crow ore is most likely the cause. Clan uncle, please summon the other 2 supervisors. Li Chuyang nodded and fetched the cultivators of the Lu and An clans. The 2 stood uneasily before Li Xuanfeng, suspecting that the young qi refining cultivator had found some excuse to target their families. Miners here frequently lose their tongues. Were the 2 of you aware of this? The men froze, then answered with repeated affirmations while complaining inwardly. A qi refining cultivator actually concerns himself with the lives of mortals? Losing a tongue is not enough to make someone incapable of labor. So long as they can still work, who cares whether they live or die? Li Xuanfeng thought for several breaths. The Azure Crow mine was still a spirit mine. Its metal and stone aura might injure mortal bodies. Losing the tongue could even be a relatively mild consequence. He feared that if several thousand people labored inside day and night, their vitality might be drained within months, and thousands would die for nothing. How are shifts currently arranged? There are more than 4,000 miners. Around 1,000 enter the mine at a time and remain inside for 3 days before coming out. The rest excavate the surface and construct facilities along the vein. Li Xuanfeng waved a hand. Divide them into 4 mining shifts. Do not allow anyone to remain inside for too long. After I return to the clan, I will send additional men so the workers can rotate more frequently. The 2 men agreed repeatedly. Li Xuanfeng shook his head and rode the wind back to report to Li Tongya. Li Chuyang watched the respectful pair until Li Xuanfeng had disappeared. He frowned inwardly. No wonder these 2 clans have populations of only 20 or 30,000. In a few decades, the Li clan has already grown beyond 60,000. These people clearly do not regard mortals as human beings. They likely do not even bother supervising agriculture, much less sustaining the livelihood of their people. Yet those 20 or 30,000 people are the foundation of their clans. Brother Chu Yang. The 2 cultivators approached with ingratiating smiles. The Lu cultivator winked. Your senior has entrusted the matter to you, so we will leave it in your capable hands. I still have important business and will depart first. Without waiting for Li Chuyang's reply, the 2 men threw their arms around each other's shoulders and left laughing. Li Chuyang's eyelid twitched with anger. These 2 spend every day and night playing around the mine. Women are constantly brought into their rooms. Aside from eating, drinking, and amusing themselves, they know nothing. What a waste of their cultivation. In the Li clan, even cultivators can be seized and questioned by the clan administration. These men are truly worthless. He turned toward his own courtyard. The more he thought about it, the calmer he became. He sneered. Enjoy yourselves. In a few years I would like to see what your 2 clans can use to stop the Li clan. Li Chuyang returned to his room, finished issuing instructions, and sat cross-legged to cultivate. At the other end of the compound, a banquet was already in full swing. Music and laughter filled the courtyard as the Lu and An cultivators drank and talked. This mine is truly a blessing. We do not have to look at the faces of those elders at home. Li Chuyang handles everything for us. What freedom, exactly. The An cultivator laughed, took a small sip of spiritual wine, and smacked his lips with pleasure. The Li clan is still only a newly rich household. It rose too quickly, and its qi refining cultivators are too young. Their hearts remain those of mortals. Across the entire Guli region, which clan does not treat mortals as tools? Mortals exist to serve cultivators. Since when do cultivators concern themselves with mortals? The Lu cultivator nodded leisurely. Look at the Li clan. It may be powerful, but the Shanyue hold it tightly in the west, making it a shield for us. I heard the Shanyue have more than 10 qi refining cultivators, and even a king at the peak of qi refining. They are not easy to deal with. He lifted his chin slightly, proud of the information he had gathered. The cultivator asked, I have also heard that your Lu clan has a powerful cultivator within King Qi sect. That is an impressive source of support. The Lu cultivator shook his head, his expression falling. Our clans have been connected by marriage for many years, so there is no need to hide the truth. That ancestor cultivated on Moon Lake Peak and reached the peak of qi refining. He failed while attempting foundation establishment and died more than 80 years ago. Aside from a trace of old affection from Moon Lake Peak's master, what support do we truly possess? He lowered his voice. How could that compare with the genius of your clan? The cultivator sighed resentfully. The elders of my clan truly dote upon Jingming. The cultivation resources of the entire family are placed at his disposal. I hear he eats spiritual rice with every meal. We are all terribly envious. If my family had cared for me like that, perhaps even I might have challenged qi refining. Ah? The Lu cultivator sighed. The music throughout the courtyard suddenly seemed especially piercing. I am already past 50, yet I have not even formed the Jade Capital Wheel. What hope do I have of reaching qi refining in this life? I can only spend the 50 years I have left enjoying myself. At least then, this life will not have been wasted. The cultivator was also overcome with sorrow. After draining his cup, he choked out. 8 or 9 things out of 10 in life go against one's wishes. I learned to see through it long ago. The two men raised their cups and wept loudly in the courtyard, eventually clutching each other and sobbing. Li Xuanfeng rode the wind back to the Li clan and reported the mine's situation to Li Tongya. Li Tongya nodded lightly. In a few days, I will personally take a turn guarding the mine. Prepare yourself in the meantime. Find Shanyue and collect this year's tribute. Travel to the commandery and deliver it on behalf of our clan. When Li Xuanfeng nodded, Li Tongya picked up a storage pouch from the stone table before him and handed it over. Besides the tribute for the past 5 years, the pouch contains 115 spirit stones accumulated by our clan, and 1 portion of River Center Clear Qi. It represents nearly 10 years of the Li clan's savings. When you reach the Xiao clan, find Xiao Yongling. The Xiao clan has always maintained good relations with us, and I have some friendship with him. Ask him to locate a formation master and construct a mountain-protecting grand formation for our clan. If any spirit stones remain, visit the market and purchase an artifact suited to you. You may also ask about the Azure Crow Mine. If possible, gather news of your youngest uncle as well. The Xiao clan has a vast estate and extensive influence. Xiao Yongling is also an intelligent man. He will not covet our spirit stones. Yes, seeing Li Xuanfeng nod obediently, Li Tongya hesitated for a breath, then warned him once more. Keep your posture humble at all times. Do not enter into conflict with anyone. If something happens along the road, do not cling to the spirit stones. Above all else, protect your own life. Li Xuanfeng listened carefully and nodded firmly. Only then did he take his leave and visit the courtyard to bid farewell to Li Xuanyuan and Li Xuanling. After leaving Lijing Mountain, Li Xuanfeng rode the wind eastward along the Guli Road. As he crossed Lu territory, he vaguely heard soft thunder from the west. He tilted his head and listened for a time, but when no further sound came, he continued east. Thought Li Xuanfeng had only just departed Lijing Mountain when thunder exploded across the sky. Li Tongya heard a violent buzzing beside his ears, followed by a deafening boom. Who is it? He opened his eyes in shock and hurried out of the cave dwelling. The sky north of Wangyue Lake had turned dark red. Several clouds of fire gathered overhead, dyeing the entire lake like a sea of flame. The radiance of artifacts flashed faintly among them. Lake Heart Island, the direction of the Wangyue Lake Market. A vast transparent barrier rose around the small island at the lake's center. Li Tongya activated his true essence and looked into the distance. Nearly 10 figures stood scattered across the sky. My Wangyue Lake Market has operated here for more than 200 years with King Qi sect's permission. Do these fellow cultivators understand what they are doing? An aged voice echoed across the lake, carrying restrained fury. It clearly belonged to the master of the Wangyue Lake Market. I have heard the market master is a foundation establishment cultivator. Those besieging the market must be foundation establishment cultivators as well. Li Tongya flew nearly 100 li closer and observed the distant market. A large island had always occupied the center of Wangyue Lake, with the market at its heart. The island had normally been hidden by a formation, but the attack had forced it into view. Dense aquatic vegetation surrounded interconnected towers, pavilions, terraces, and halls. It looked like an immortal paradise. Chen Toping, stop pretending. You have hidden at Wangyue Lake for 200 years. If not for a fortunate coincidence, we would truly have believed you were dead. Another calm voice rang out. Li Tongya listened for a moment before his spiritual sense detected movement. He turned with a strange expression and saw a figure flying in from the west. Tribal markings covered the man's body, and he wore beast bones and jade ornaments. It was Mu Xiaoman. The disturbance had also drawn Mu Xiaoman out to investigate. He had not expected to meet Li Tongya's gaze. Shock immediately crossed his face, and he found himself trapped between advancing and retreating. Brother Tongya. He sent the awkward greeting through spiritual transmission. Seeing Mu Xiaoman poised to turn and flee at any moment, Li Tongya could not be bothered with him. He focused instead upon the battle over the lake. The aged voice paused before replying, Taoping? Who is Chen Toping? I am Zhang Tuoqian. Fellow Taoist, do not allow others to deceive you into offending an immortal sect without cause. Another voice laughed softly and answered with cold disdain, stop delaying. King Qi sect has already given us its consent. Today is the day the remnants of Lingyu Gate die. We borrowed the Manglei formation breaking wedge. This formation cannot protect you. Thunder erupted across the sky. Fire rained down alongside bolts of lightning, causing the grand formation to flicker between light and darkness. Red and white radiance repeatedly illuminated the lake. Numerous wandering cultivators had already gathered around the perimeter and watched in astonishment. Li Tongya estimated the time. Within the span of one incense stick, the formation collapsed with a tremendous roar. Multicolored streams of light filled the sky, as several figures collided repeatedly above the island. Waves of force swept outward and raised violent swells across the lake. What an enormous disturbance. These people are most likely all at the peak of Foundation establishment, not far from the Purple Mansion realm. As Li Tongya continued listening, more than 10 figures ignored the aftershocks of the battle and rushed into the market the instant the formation broke. They clearly intended to take advantage of the chaos. How tempting! Li Tongya narrowed his eyes. Mu Xiaoman was also eager to move. Greed filled his gaze, but when he quietly looked toward Li Tongya, he noticed the other man's cultivation and cried out in horror. The 5th level of Qi refining? How is that possible? Mu Xiaoman remembered clearly that Li Tongya had only been at the 3rd level when they fought several years earlier. How had he reached the 5th after barely 2 years? Li Tongya turned and smiled at him. Every hair on Mu Xiaoman's body stood on end. He gave a strange howl, spun around, and fled like smoke, shooting several hundred yards away. Blood-red light flickered around him, revealing that he had activated a shamanic art. Li Tongya withdrew his gaze and looked down at the colorful artifacts clashing above the island. He stroked his chin. Entering the battlefield myself would be far too dangerous. I should wait here for those people to bring their treasures directly to me. He flew some distance, adjusted his position, and concentrated on the colored lights within the market, waiting for someone carrying treasure to flee in his direction. Chen Toping, where is the river and stream grand mausoleum scripture? The battle above grew even more violent. A white-robed elder wielding a long spear fought 3 opponents alone. The others pressed him backward again and again. Hearing the demand, he gritted his teeth. This old man has no idea what you are talking about. You remain stubborn even with death before you. One of the 3 Foundation establishment cultivators sneered. The artifact in his hand released a brilliant light, slowing Chen Taoping's movements. Another strike nearly severed one of the old man's arms. Lingyu Gate has already been destroyed. This inheritance cannot be allowed to spread outside. Once I capture you, we will search for the whereabouts of the river and stream grand mausoleum scripture ourselves. Pa! Chen Toping spat fiercely. His long spear moved without pause as he defended himself. I have no desire to avenge the destruction of my sect. I only wanted to survive and spend the rest of my life quietly on this lake. Even after all this time, you refuse to release me. Must you truly exterminate every last survivor? The Foundation establishment cultivator controlling the artifact raised his brows. When Lingyu Gate was destroyed, 61 jade slips of the Grand Mausoleum scripture vanished. That is no small matter. We have pursued the trail for more than a century without finding a single clue. Otherwise, we would not wish to force this issue. You people have calculated everything perfectly. Grief covered Chen Taoping's face. Driven to the edge of death, his expression turned savage. If the river and stream grand mausoleum scripture were truly in my hands, would you still be looking at Chen Toping at the peak of Foundation establishment? I would have reached the Purple Mansion realm and roamed the world freely. The cultivator holding the artifact hesitated slightly, but continued urging it forward. Golden light spread faster and faster, wrapping around Chen Toping and further slowing his movements. We are merely following orders. Once we capture and search you, the truth will be clear. Li Tongya waited above the lake for some time. At last, a streak of white light rose from the island and flew from north to south. Li Tongya smoothly removed a strip of spirit cloth from his storage pouch and covered his face. His left hand pressed against his sword as he flew forward to intercept the newcomer. "Fellow cultivator!" The fleeing cultivator came directly toward him but offered no reply. Without hesitation, the figure climbed higher and veered aside, intending to pass him. Li Tongya had already prepared the Moon Gang sword arc. He drew his sword and raised a stream of white sword light, slashing directly across the person's path. "You dare!" The cultivator was forced to stop and drew a sword to block. The voice was soft and melodious. Unexpectedly, the fleeing thief was a woman. She hurriedly drove her magical power forward to meet the Moon Gang sword arc. Her sword nearly flew from her grip. The collision shook her internal organs, causing her face to alternate between green and red. She almost lost control of the hand seal sustaining her flight and glared down at Li Tongya with hatred. Li Tongya's attention, however, rested on the emerald green sword in her hand. Complex patterns covered the blade, and a single glance revealed it to be an exceptional ritual sword. Seeing the woman's ugly expression, desire stirred in his heart. He deliberately made his voice hoarse. "Lady, you are no match for me. Leave behind your storage pouch and artifact, and I may spare your life." The female cultivator sneered. White sword light suddenly erupted from her blade as she reversed her grip and slashed at Li Tongya. "Go home and enjoy that foolish dream of yours." Li Tongya calmly raised his sword to meet her. With 2 consecutive strikes, he knocked her blade aside and began calculating how long it would take to capture her. This woman is only at the 6th level of Qi refining, though both her cultivation method and true essence are extraordinary. In an ordinary fight, defeating her would still require between 120 and 140 exchanges. But people are constantly coming and going across this lake. If others are drawn here, matters will become troublesome. I should end this quickly. Although Li Tongya was only at the 5th level of Qi refining, the heavy sea-long whale combined with his sword cultivation placed his combat strength far beyond that of ordinary cultivators. A 6th level opponent was naturally no match for him. Even orthodox cultivators at the 7th or 8th level of Qi refining would struggle to defeat him. As for wandering cultivators who had carelessly swallowed miscellaneous Qi to force their breakthroughs, even those at the peak of Qi refining were not his equal. The sword Qi in Li Tongya's hand grew increasingly brilliant. Sweat covered the woman's forehead as she was forced backward again and again.